I think you have a book in you or something. That it's so fascinating to me when it comes to like generational trauma, and it seems like you've obviously had to deal with your own. And I've been watching interviews with people they've like 5 generations deep in the 2x2s. What's your advice for trying to break the cycle of generational trauma?
Start seeing someone, talk to somebody, because I went into the world of addiction and trauma because I felt very strongly. You know how everybody says weed. Here, I need to plug my phone in real quick. You know, everybody says weed is the gateway drug.
Mm-hmm.
I did that after spending so much time helping people and helping families get their lives back. I saw what trauma did, and I became convinced that trauma has the same effect on the brain that drugs and alcohol do. Mm-hmm. It starts changing the way the brain works at an early age. And one of the examples I always use is like the brain's primary function is to take the irrational and make it rational. Mm-hmm. It's survival of the species. The brain is the cog. So the brain takes, if I thump my arm, the brain is the one that sends the signal. You know, it's just this mechanism. And so as a baby, for instance, when your daughter or son starts screaming in the middle of the night, you run in, what's wrong? What's wrong? And they're like, there's a monster. And that's an irrational fear. So you, the parent, make it rational. You turn on the light, mm-hmm. you show them, there's no monsters, and you sit with them and you show the closet, and then maybe you put a nightlight in there. So that irrational thought has been made rational through the help of mom and dad, which is a normal. So the next time that fear comes, you know, the little one will wake up and go, wait, daddy said it's okay. You know, I got the light on. I think I'm good. Maybe a couple of more mom and dad come in, and then kids got it. Yeah. What happens in the scenario if nobody comes and the kid is screaming and nobody comes? Well, it'll get real quiet, pull the covers up and just lay there all night long, not moving a muscle.
Yeah.
And it makes it morning. So the brain will remember that and freeze it in the brain and say, at the next sign of trouble, get still, because you survived the night. And so you see those disruptions of the brain and the way we process in every member of the truth. Mm. They are so, my cousin, the one that I just love so much, she got offended with me over something that I don't even to this day know what. We were in the middle of moving and being homeless, and I think they had some weather in their town, and I didn't respond quick enough. And like the projection that she took off with that information, I remember just thinking to myself, girl, you need to get some help, because they don't have any coping mechanisms. They're not taught how to cope with life, it's like God is not the answer if you're not providing the right God.
Right. They're providing man.
Yeah. I mean, everything with them. And so I can't encourage, I would be very careful with the Facebook groups, because we haven't healed. So I can be all full of, I need to talk to people, I need to find my own people, but I'm still going to be responding the way I did growing up, because I haven't learned new way to respond. I haven't learned how to cope. Mm-hmm. I haven't learned any of that. And I think just from my own experience, you know, I'm probably the anomaly as far as what my life has been like in my education and where I've worked. So I have a much broader understanding of the mind and how we react. And like I was telling her, we were in Malibu one night, and it was when we were stranded. And I still wake up like every 2 or 3 hours just in a cold sweat. And my brain, speaking of irrational, my PTSD manifests like this. At night, when I go to sleep, my brain tries to put Connie back together.
Oh, wow.
And because it knows that wasn't right. And so I'll wake up like struggling because it's trying to be full again. Yeah, I find that fascinating. So I will just sit outside and recenter, and, you know, and out there I was just put the headphones on and I was listening to music, and I was sitting there, and I am not kidding you, silent as can be. I don't know if this is a UFO. I don't know what it was, but this huge craft, silent, just went gliding right past me. And it was like, out on the ocean. And
That's
it was
crazy.
just, and I was going to go wake up Tate. And then I was like, oh, it's already gone. He'll think I'm like just crazy. But like I was telling my cousin about that, and I could see by her reaction, oh, Tammy, don't be crazy.
Right.
Like they don't know the concept of evil. I mean, they just haven't, they're still like super close. So I know what it's like to be in that cult and not know what it's about. We'll never get an answer from any of them. They'll whitewash it. And I think seeing a therapist, if you can, that deals with religious abuse is the best way to start your journey. And be real careful about talking to anybody, even in those groups, because there are spies. I could name 4.
Wow.
And and these groups are getting bigger and bigger. The other thing that I thought was interesting too is one of the comments that one of the girls made to me in regards to convention. So I always believed that convention was, yes, where you go to get refreshed spiritually and meet other professors, as I like to call them, truthers. But it's also where you bring people and introduce them to the truth, hoping that they'll find Christ.
Mm-hmm.
And that was kind of my dad's belief, was that we need to share the message and we need to bring as many people to Christ as we can. And I feel like that's gone away. Like the conventions are just for them now. So there's not a lot of outside. Yeah, it's very interesting. It's changed through the years, and maybe it's because of they all know there's an FBI investigation.
Interesting. What do you hear from them at all about what they are thinking about it? Are they trying to create a loophole in their mind for that even?
Some are trying to create a loophole. Some are actually, I would say, not threatening, as in I'm going to come and kill you or kick your ass or whatever. But they're letting it be known that you shouldn't be talking. No one should be talking. So if anybody is teetering on, they're not going to talk, and that's how they retain control. And it's such a mind war, because this whole thing, I'm going to be 63, and it took this experience and the way my family has treated me. They have like just pretty much ostracized us. Mm-hmm. And to be cut off from everyone and everything. And the only, and I asked them all for help, and that's my sin. That is my sin. Now, bear in mind, when all of this went down, everybody sent me, I probably had hundreds of text messages, messages on Messenger, Instagram, whatever, saying, if you ever need anything, we are so sorry. This is such a tragedy. Tammy, if you ever need anything, please call me. So guess what? I called those people when we were stranded. And I said, you know what? I've been cut off. Things aren't going good. I need some help. I just need to have the help getting on my feet. Sometimes it would just be like we needed gas to get somewhere. I mean, it went that quick. When I was cut off financially, I had the divorce. I had a lot of stuff has gone on. And it was the idea, they would completely disagree with it. But the idea was to break me, because I can be broken down. I can be brought back to Christ.
Of course. To their version of it, at least. Wow. Are there members in the 2x2s that are in places of power beyond just local government stuff, or at all in local government?
I know of. They don't infiltrate any of that. Now they hold normal jobs, and I do know that there's nurses and a few doctors, but very few. And the ones that the higher your education, the less likely you are to stay in it.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It goes hand in hand. The more, and that's what happened even with me early on.
You're harder to control.
Yeah.
Wow.
And they frown on the education thing. Not so much for the men. It's okay for the men to go get educated as long as it's a job. women, they've had a hard time having any kind of women's rights
Right.
at all. And the women propagated the worst. I mean, if you saw the way the mothers, and that's changing, it gets diluted every year, which is why I think the church is losing members.
Right.
Because, you get to a certain place where when I was growing up, not having a TV was kind of an anomaly, but it wasn't a story.
Mm-hmm.
Today, not having a TV, not having a phone, not having internet access, any of that makes you a freak.
Shane.
Yeah, I don't have a TV.
Shane doesn't have a TV.
I don't own a TV. I haven't had a TV.
He's a freak.
And I am a freak. I know. So obviously these people are running some crazy operation and it's horrible, especially with the stuff that we're hearing about the children, the abuse. Is there anything though in the news that you've seen that seems false to you so far? Like any bad reporting where you're like, oh, I wish they didn't say that because that's actually not true? Or
here's what I want to say, and I believe this very, very, especially as I've been chasing my story and trying to make sense of it. And once I opened up, that's what I was going to say. Here it is. Like I am 63. My family has treated me terribly the last year and a half. The misinformation, it's like it's like opposition research in a political campaign. Mm-hmm. They can put out there and it travels, it all spreads. Right. And they like to say, we don't talk, we don't gossip. I mean, it's out like that. And it has taken me this long to call a spade a spade. That's even me, as hard brainwashed as I am and as educated and savvy and, out in the world I've been and worked with so many people and helped so many families. It still took me this last year to say I'm done. Right. I'm done. What? You guys are screwed up. It's not me, and I'm over it. I always I wouldn't speak. I wouldn't demean. I wouldn't say there's problems. I wouldn't speak out against the truth. I would speak behind the scenes, mm-hmm. and I would speak to the other girls. But like my one friend, she's still there, and I love this girl. She has been as good a friend to me as I've ever had. And she had to cut me off.
Wow.
And
that's terrible. Yeah.
Why?
Well, because you are subverting their narrative, right?
Yeah.
So kind of like your brother's crime scene and all that and everything that happened, it seems like anything like that's going to make them question the world that they've built has got to be cut off.
And the other interesting thing, is because I've said this for years, it started like when I was working in addiction. First of all, just because I'm a trauma survivor, I am constantly on alert. So I feel energy, and everybody say, "Oh, I'm an empath." Everybody's an empath. I mean, come on, we get these catchphrases, but if you learn how to feel energy and feel your instincts, yep. For us, that was a survival. You're not going to live, or you're not going to make it through the experience if you're not keeping an eye out and watching it, especially because I left home so early. And then I had a series of really bad things happen. Right. That there's no way around it. It's either going to take you down, or you're going to figure out how to work around it and what impact did it have on you. And I think that for most of the women, especially, if I could say anything, I was asked one time, I go do this, I used to go do this conference every year. I was asked to do a TED Talk, and I was this close to doing a TED Talk when all this blew up. And I'm so grateful, because now I think TED Talk is like pedophile city, but that's a conversation.
Yeah.
I learned all this stuff. See how God works in my life. What if I had become a TED Talk person and I was right in the devil's lair? Right. You know what I mean?
Yep.
He has me off anytime there was something that was about to go, but we were doing, I forgot what I was going to say around that, about the people of the truth. I believe fundamentally that most of them are very good, kind people. Mm-hmm. I believe, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
They truly think, my mom didn't say, you know what, let's screw up Tammy's life.
Right.
They thought they were saving my soul.
Right.
And as excited as it was, but here's where I appreciate my mom and my dad was as the years morphed and you had things like alcoholism and like real problems that could end your life, they mellowed. They're like, we're just glad you're alive.
Right.
You know, we'll take you just as you are, and maybe someday you'll come back to the truth. And I think they ultimately gave up on that. But my dad, the night before he died, Tate was a little dude, and he died right before Thanksgiving. Thanksgiving is like a torturous holiday for me these days.
I imagine.
But he didn't get to see Taylor on Halloween because he'd been in the hospital. And Taylor was Simba from Lion King. He had like the whole outfit, and he wouldn't stop wearing it. And so Dad, and I think it was like the 20th, right? It was the night before he died. I don't even remember what day he died on. But Tate was insistent on wearing that Simba. And my dad loved Tate. The other grandkids, when they go to the hospital and they had like tubes and shit hanging out, they were petrified. But Tate wasn't. Peapod, and he'd up there and pull his oxygen out. Killed Grandpa. You know? So he always got super happy whenever Tate came. So we went to see him, and if I'd have known that was the last night I'd ever see him, I'd have spent the night with him. But he looked at me and he said, I'm so proud of you. Go and don't come back.
Wow.
And I didn't know what he meant. I was like, oh, you know, it's got to be the morphine. And then he died the next day.
Wow.
And like stuck around in my head for a really long time. Like, what did he mean? You know, go and don't come back. I think my father was conflicted and wanted things to change and knew it was going to.
It's probably
and I think
an uphill battle if people are in that place and they see things going wrong. I mean, who knows what he probably saw? It sounds like every time I hear some person who's left, everyone's got a very similar story about encountering something extremely dark.
Yeah, there's a lot. And like I learned, I have a cousin who, I have a lot of cousins, you know, they don't do birth control. So there's a lot of us, but really, we just keep popping up.
That's how they keep the membership up.
Yeah, right. That's true. That's why as women, you know, we were there to procreate. And I'm like, oh, not happening. Mama wants to go to school. They're like, oh. But should I sidetrack myself? I don't know what I was going to say.
Oh, it's all good. We were talking about people. Where were we? More members, I think. I was thinking about the money and where it was going, but I forgot where you were.
I have no idea. I get like that. Well, I do want to say, especially that I believe that there's.
You're talking about cousins. Sorry, you're talking about cousins and family.
Check this out. So this is like just all the deets that I start finding out. I'm like, really? Oh, that makes so much sense. So I had an aunt who had cancer, and this is back before the opiate crisis, if you know what I mean.
Yep.
So she got some pills, right? Unbeknownst to me, I had no idea. Now, I can tell you, I've never once seen my mother loaded. I've never seen my aunt loaded. I've never seen any of the older generation loaded.
Right.
They wouldn't be dead loaded. They were all doing pills. Do you know that my mom had opiates, benzos? I mean, they took a pill for everything. And so I was my cousin, and I was like, isn't it funny how like everybody turns out all this time, like I was told I was going to hell if I even stepped out of line. And it turns out everybody was like just popping pills like it was, you know, the second coming of Christ. And he started laughing and he goes, yeah, Aunt so-and-so was the drug dealer. And I'm like, what?
Wow.
And he goes, oh, yeah, she used to get like big vats of Percocets. And wow. I'm like, okay. So there's this whole thing, and that doesn't make them bad people. I don't mean, I dearly loved that aunt. You know, it didn't change the way I felt at all. It's just the secrecy of it all. And the wagging of, you're going to hell, you know, you're bad, you're this, you're that. And then
it's how they can keep control over everybody, you know, by keeping everyone living in fear. And it seems like there's so many people who, you know, want to publicly follow the laws of the cult, but they're obviously behind the scenes. They got a TV in the closet and a, you know, pill box beneath the bed.
Like, here's another bizarre story. My whole life is full of bizarre stories. So my dad owned he was in real estate, and this is way back in the day. he had a real estate office, and to offset his rent, he bought a big giant Kodak copier, and we made copies for 3 cents a copy. And I would go in and work for him and, make the copies and be as a receptionist, whatever. So one day this guy comes in and he wants to make a bunch of copies, but he wants to do it himself. And I said, you can't, we're not allowed. I have to run the machine. It's really expensive. And he was really insistent on it. And it was about a $300 job, which back then was a lot of money. It'd probably be $1,000 job today. And I said, listen, I'll tell you what, give me your original and I'll set the machine up and I'll have it collate it for you. And the copies will come out the side and you can do whatever you want with them and then split and you can pay me when you're done. But don't you screw with the machine. So we agreed and I stayed out of the room and he did and he paid and he left. And I went in to clean the machine and on the other side, the original had come out and stayed over there. And so I picked it up and it was, probably about almost an inch thick. And I didn't pay much attention to it. And I went outside to see if he was still there and he was gone and I didn't have his info. And so I stuck it in my drawer and I didn't really think much of it. And over the next several days, I kept seeing it and I pulled it out. And it was all the depositions from the Santa Fe prison riot, which was one of the bloodiest riots in history of prison. I was reading it and I was like they were impaling people with broomsticks in the anus and out the throat.
Totally insane. It was like a medieval painting.
Yeah, it was really, really bad. And there was the guy who was given his deposition had managed to lock himself in a cell. And he was talking about there were some guards and a couple of prisoners that were trying to do the right thing that were murdered terribly, terribly murdered. And they died trying to protect the staff.
Wow.
And it was, I'm a rookie. I just stepped out of the cult, no TV, no nothing. And I was so horrified and it was so shocking what I read. I mean, it was like reading what Carlin did, except a whole bunch of them all together.
Right.
And I remember thinking, I need to get rid of this, but I didn't want anyone else to find it. And I had like this weird connection that I know today is, for a while I just called them riders, where I would feel like something was protecting me. And like just weird things would happen and something would shift or change and I'd be spared from something. And I would think to myself, that's really weird. And so in this particular thing, I was like, I didn't want my parents to find it because I knew that they would pass it around the truth because they have a morbid curiosity with all things outside the truth. And if there's something in the news, they're all over it and they'll talk about it and watch it and pass it around. And so I literally would take a thin stack and shred it every day and put it in different trash bins around the city. And I don't know why I did that. I can't tell you why I did that, except that I was moved to do that. There was something about the people that died trying to do the right thing that really struck my heart and really, and so fast forward as my life, I don't know. See, I don't even know how to say if it was a visitation or whatever. I'm just learning. I'm just looking at examples of things that have happened to me and trying to quantify them and put them in something that makes sense to me. But I would have dreams that, but like the veil was real thin. It was almost like they were there, that those people knew that I had protected them.
Mm-hmm.
And does that make sense?
What was the last part you said? Sorry.
It was the veil that protected them.
It was almost like they protected me.
Oh, yeah. Totally.
Like it was a weird thing. And to this day, I feel like I was telling you about the Taiwanese soldier that's staying here.
Yeah.
And never talk about demons to anybody because, people just think, oh, she's a crazy. So I just go about my work, my job. And, and polite and friendly. And like just this random, she comes up, she calls me mama, and she comes up and starts talking to me, and she has that real strong accent, so she sometimes is hard to understand. But the long and short of it was, she's seen me and she knows that I have a light around me, and so she's wanted to come over and talk to me. And it's not the first time that people have said that. That's been a repeated thing, is that I have light, and I'm like, it's probably just the hair, but she just started talking to me about. Oh, I know what it was. I said that I call this God's hotel, because we've had some really, I mean, just the people that pass through, and we're not always at.
Well, that real quick. That's the name of your book when you write it. Mm-hmm. That is the name of your book. Don't anyone take that. That's Tami's.
And let's write it down.
God's hotel is the gateway drug.
Yeah, that could be the subtitle. Yeah.
It was serious, a demon hunting series. But anyway, so we had a lady die in the parking lot here. Whoa. And, just random. That's what I was telling you at the beginning. You might have a ghost because that guy moved her car right outside my room.
Wow.
Family.
That's crazy.
Like, Doc, I don't need her car right there. You know what I'm saying? Where she's at, she might try to talk to me. Man, you need to get that car out of here. But I went by and I said, "You're good. You're all good. You just stay right there. Don't be busy." She told me she sees demons here. She sees demons on the roof here.
Wow.
Yeah. So I'll get more about that story. But just interesting, because there's something about those of us that believe that other believers know without ever speaking a word. Mm-hmm. Because I don't walk around telling my story. That's a little much for people to take, and just. Random people will come up and start talking to us. Another thing I wanted to tell you that was interesting with Tate, when we were living in our van, the homeless situation is really foul, in LA and in Austin too. And so we are constantly having to be on guard. Like in Malibu, we had a knife pulled on us and all of our stuff stolen. And another bum tried to come after me, and Tate sort of got in between, and he took a stick at Tate, a club. And these are experiences in Malibu, and money city. And what's interesting about the Malibu people, I just sit and observe all the time. They just don't want to see. So here's this guy, the one that had the stick that he was going to take to Tate. This guy is a homeless guy that's been around for a number of years. We saw him the last time we came through Malibu, when we were actually just there vacationing, not stranded. And he's got a big old tattoo on his face. And he literally walks through Trancas, which is like a little shopping center on the north side way on the north side. Just to put it in a note for you, the Kardashians, after the fires, went in and rebuilt the whole thing and really spiffed it up. And so it's kind of a hangout place. Lady Gaga goes there. I used to see the crew from Breaking Bad every morning. Caitlyn Jenner used to bust my balls. And
no pun intended.
Listen, let me tell you something. The oddest thing, I guess I thought maybe the voice was different, and when they introduced me, I was like, "You're Bruce." Hey, Bruce, you're still a pompous ass.
Still Bruce.
But it was really funny. But this guy would walk through that parking lot every day through the center and shoulder check people and tell them to fuck off. Mm-hmm. And sometimes with a gun, and nobody did anything. Everybody would just put their heads down. And I'm like, you guys are paying millions of dollars, and you're gonna let this fool walk in here doing it?
So look, it's like, what you're describing is just a wider societal version of a cult. We're talking about how your cult that you're from putting their heads down to ignore everything. And meanwhile, look at the rest of society and how we're all brainwashed and all that stuff. But Tami, we're gonna have to leave it here for tonight. I feel like you're gonna have to come back, and we're gonna have updates
You have so much story to tell. I was honestly thinking you were going to be more fragile and sensitive, but look at you.
Tammy's a
You're
soldier.
A warrior.
Tammy's a soldier. But seriously, I feel like people are there's people out there, not even from the 2x2s and other situations, that are probably gonna want to find you if you're even open to that. Is that a possibility? If so, how can they find you?
I told Tate, let me see. I told him to write down my let me see. We wrote it down.
It's
She started her book.
book.
Yeah.
He writes on a legal pad. You know, I love him. He's constantly writing. Let me tell you, he's okay, here we go. My Twitter account is Tami Pacheco, TamiPacheco 1961. And then my email is straight to Tami
at Gmail. Cool.
And yes, I'm very open because I think that's the direction I've been asking God for discernment and to show me where I can be of service.
Yeah.
Because it's like it was an addiction.
Yeah.
You know, and I just assumed that's where I would wind up, but it's turning into this whole other thing as I follow my own story and try to make sense of it.
Well,
and
I think obviously it's very inspiring stories, haunting and terrible as so much of it is, but there's a lot of people out there I'm finding that are from very similar situations, whether it's the 2x2s or, you know, there are countless cults out there and just other horrible situations. And I think you got a good way to help people navigate that. So I'm really grateful you came on, and I'm grateful that you shared your story with us. And
What am I doing here?
we'll have to keep in touch. And when there's updates, as I'm sure there will be, we'll have to have you back.
yes, absolutely. Thank you so much for having me.
Story.
Yeah, thank you so much, and shout out to Tate for making this all happen.
What a guy.
Bye.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Wow.
That was a wild story.
That is wild. So
What a wild life.
holy moly, what an episode to come back on.
There was one super chat
Oh yeah, what do we got?
from Dylan. I'm not going to say his last name, Dylan. Sorry. This is the first episode that I've caught live from the start. I watch all the clips, though. Why no super chats? Send some love, neighbors.
Yeah. What's up with that?
Yeah, what's up with that? Give us your money.
No, we appreciate that. Thank you,
like
Dylan.
a cult, like a real cult.
Thank you, Dylan. I was going to say before we go,
Yes.
I have one odd family connection to a type of cult. And she reminded me of it while she was talking. So my grandfather, who was like my hero, right? His brother was 8 years older than him. And his brother went to World War II. He fought in the Pacific Theater. Supposedly one of the first people to see, Nagasaki after the bomb dropped. If you believe in atom bombs, because we did have a conversation when you were gone about atom bombs, something bad happened out there. Whatever it was, I have photos from him when he returned of just a wasteland in Japan. Those crazy little black and white photos. Anyway, when he came back from the war, my grandfather would tell me that this guy that he looked up to, it was his hero, was just different, completely screwed up. They didn't have like words like PTSD or anything back then.
Yeah.
But obviously the war had messed him up, and he opened a like TV shop. And my grandfather would kind of work for him, be an assistant in TV shop. And he would set up, his older brother would set up shop in the back with a gun and just start shooting the screens to the TVs. And my grandfather was like, he's like losing it. This isn't my brother. This isn't the guy I look up to. Totally, you know, from what I can tell, normal before he went to the war. But, you know, who knows? Anyway, he just, after all the shooting the TVs and business, he just bounced from Brooklyn, which devastated my grandfather. And no one knew where he went. No one knew. So this information is now only coming, you know, it came way, way, way many years later through my grandfather before he passed away and through what would become his brother's children, who I know now. But anyway, when he left, what we found out was he went to LA or somewhere near LA and was basically homeless. He took his bike from Brooklyn and just went out west. He had an old Indian motorcycle. And out there, living on the streets, some guy who looked kind of wealthy said, I can help you out with your life. I'll give you my basement to live in. Just hand out these pamphlets. Have I told you this story before?
No.
I'll just hand out these pamphlets. He's like, yeah, no doubt. He didn't say no doubt. I said no doubt. He said, for sure, sir. And started handing out pamphlets on the streets of, I believe, Los Angeles. That man was L. Ron Hubbard.
What?
And the pamphlets were Scientology.
Oh, no.
Yeah, and he lived in L. Ron Hubbard's basement.
Wow.
And my grandfather's brother would meet his wife at the Scientology meetings, and now felt like connected to Scientology, and kind of became like a janitor type figure to L. Ron. And this is really weird because if anyone's seen the movie The Master, I swear to you, someone found out my family member's story, because it's almost the same exact story.
Okay.
World War II guy, motorcycle, goes out west, meets Philip Seymour Hoffman's character, who's basically L. Ron Hubbard.
Okay,
But,
the movie was terrible. So anyway.
But yeah. Wait, you said the movie was terrible?
Yeah.
I love that movie.
Oh God.
Love that movie. So yeah, L. Ron Hubbard had a house in New Jersey, and there was some kind of flood, and he sent my grandfather's brother and his wife at the time to New Jersey to go fix the house. And I guess, I don't know what happened, and I don't think anybody does. Something out there they were like, we are done with Scientology. And they were picking up all these canned goods from the flood in the basement and just took them all. And then so his son, who I'm friends with, who's, my parents' age, he was like, we were raised on L. Ron Hubbard's canned goods.
Wow.
for years, because that's all they
something.
had.
Wow.
Crazy. Then they became Quakers.
Oh.
I don't know how that happened.
One
but,
thing to the next.
It's so wild.